Sinach has been a voice of healing, hope, and praise for millions of people worldwide for more than 20 years. Even during the most difficult circumstances, her songs have been heard in churches, restoring faith and healing hearts. However, the topic of what is actually happening in her marriage has been a persistent concern for both fans and detractors. Behind the scenes, the gospel icon finally speaks. At the age of 53, Sinach shares a glimpse into her private life in a way she has never done before. Following years of quiet rumors and unending conjecture, her revelations change our perception of her. Rather than only providing answers to our queries, she corrects the record for the first time gracefully and without drama, speaking with the same cool authority that made the world pay attention to Waymaker. This is her truth, not only a reaction to rumors. The story starts now, the one that only Sinach could tell, not the one that the blogs told. We believe we know some stories, but we never realized they had so many levels. Sinach's path is one of those uncommon tales that silently develops behind the music, the celebrity, and the composed worship leader we all assumed we knew. Nevertheless, she stayed grounded despite all the highs and lows, rumors and whispers. Rooted in elegance, rooted in religion, rooted in silence, a strength that the world tends to undervalue. Sinach made the opposite decision in a time when many people seek approval and attention through continuous exposure. She decided to protect her house. She made the decision to uphold her promise despite accusations that she was hiding. She opted for peace. At 53, however, her voice now carries a testimony in addition to melodies, a testament to perseverance rather than perfection, a tale of quiet triumphs rather than glamorous proclamations. There is much more to this occasion than just the name Sinach. It speaks to everyone who has ever been misinterpreted, had to defend oneself, or experienced personal suffering while others made assumptions about them in public. It serves as a reminder that not all conflicts should be shared publicly, and not all mending calls for hashtags. Prayer can be a healing tool, tears can be a therapeutic tool, and occasionally it takes place in the arms of someone the world didn't believe would survive. Sinach chose to speak now, after all these years, in order to release her truth, not to claim her name. She avoided making bold claims or using flowery language. She didn't blame anyone. Rather, she allowed us to dwell with her narrative in a private, quiet space of her heart. It was a gift, an uncommon, sincere, and modest one, and she offered others strength with her gift. Support for couples who are having difficulties behind closed doors. Women's strength in balancing friendship and calling. Support for worshipers who occasionally forget that everyone has their own storms, including those on stage. Her remarks serve as a reminder that being mature involves understanding when and why to speak, not always speaking first. Furthermore, she did more than merely defend her marriage when she eventually did. She respected it. She paid tribute to her path. Perhaps most brilliantly, she praised God by demonstrating how His presence was faithful, despite imperfection, rather than by acting as though everything was flawless. May we thereby have a greater understanding as we consider everything she shared. Love doesn't necessarily have to be loud. There is no need to prove that peace, and there is a perfect time for that reality. This anecdote serves as a reminder to individuals who have been criticized for being too quiet, too private, or too sluggish to react. Stillness does not equate to submission, and silence does not equate to absence. Far from the bright lights and international platforms she would eventually control, Sinach's career started in the heart of Nigeria. Her voice had a certain depth, from an early age, one that could soothe a restless soul and awaken a dormant faith. She didn't get famous easily or quickly. Before anyone had heard her name, she wrote songs in secret while faithfully serving in the choir at her local church. Her song Waymaker was the game changer. The worship song was sung in hundreds of churches across the globe, transcended national boundaries, and was translated into other languages. Sinach maintained her groundedness in spite of her notoriety. The spotlight pursued her, not the other way around. Her brand was shaped by her modesty, quiet demeanor, and commitment to ministry. Sinach kept one aspect of her life extremely private, her marriage to Pastor Joseph Egbu. While many celebrities revealed every aspect of their lives on the internet, even though her singing was well liked, many people became interested in her husband, who hardly ever accompanied her in public. Years of conjecture about her personal life increased along with her celebrity. Her husband's frequent absences from her ministry gatherings were observed by others. No social media posts, no joint interviews, no birthday greetings in public. Nothing. Questions quickly became whispers, and whispers became rumors. Her marriage, according to others, was merely for show. Others said she was suffering behind closed doors, being silenced, or even being controlled. Her husband, according to some internet comments, is too traditional and keeps her concealed from the outer world. These notions began to gain traction through anonymous blogs and gossip outlets. They made up tales that said insiders had spoken out. Lack of knowledge allowed for imagination, and regrettably, many people started to believe what they wanted to believe. People's suspicions grew the longer she remained silent. It became tough for her supporters to defend her in the absence of explanations. Despite everything, Sinach remained silent. Sinach made the perplexing decision to say nothing at all during the height of the rumors. Rather than answer, she concentrated even more on her mission. She created more psalms, led worship conferences, traveled the world, and offered consolation to those who were grieving. Some found it encouraging, while others thought she was concealing something. She never responded to the bogus headlines, never addressed the claims, and never gave interviews about her personal life. Longer pauses, tears during worship, and lyrics that alluded to personal suffering were some of the deeper emotions that some listeners began to notice in her performances. She also became a mother during those years, which shocked a lot of people who were unaware of her pregnancy. Even yet, she kept her family out of the spotlight. Rumors of separation or disagreement would occasionally surface again, but Sinach remained steadfast. She felt that she was being strong by keeping quiet. She once declared at a concert, "Let God fight my battles," without mentioning the specific conflict she was in then. Just when everyone thought she would never say anything, she did. Sinach ultimately made the decision to face the rumors at the age of 53 in a very intimate and uncommon interview. It was a simple, modest chat captured in a peaceful environment. It wasn't a big event. The first question the interviewer asked was, "Sin, why now? Why now after all these years?" "Because truth has its own time," she added with a kind smile. "Peace, in my opinion, speaks louder than loudness. However, there are instances when your loved ones should also hear your voice." The tone of the entire interview was established by that response. She didn't speak as a public figure or as a leader of worship. For the first time, she spoke as if she had been silently bearing the burden of presumptions for too long. She wasn't upset. She wasn't defensive. She was just prepared. Sinach revealed what had been kept secret from the public for years. In her own words, "My spouse keeps to himself. That means we defend what we cherish, not that we are far away," she remarked. She added that they had decided from the start to keep their marriage out of the public eye. It had nothing to do with secrecy or shame. It had to do with peace, she added. She refuted the allegations of emotional abuse and control. Like any other relationship, we have experienced our share of storms. There have been times when we haven't understood one another. Being in the ministry has put a lot of pressure on us, however, we continued to pick one another. She bravely shared a heartbreaking episode as well. Years ago, she had a miscarriage that left them both in a challenging emotional place. "It was among the most depressing periods of my life. However, we prayed together, grieved together, and eventually made our way back," she remarked softly. Fans were able to see her humanity for the first time, not as a gospel hero, but as a lady who persevered through adversity and emerged polished. Her candor about the difficulties in their marriage shocked the most people. She acknowledged that they had separated at one point in order to find healing and clarity. "We split up to develop, not to get away. We repaired what was damaged with The help of our pastors, counselors, and a great deal of prayer, she stated. Although the path wasn't flawless, it was genuine. She remained steadfast in her faith despite everything. Even when I didn't understand God's silence, I clung to his promises, she added. She talked about how her husband helped her in ways that the outside world couldn't see, and how music became her therapy. She spoke powerfully about a day when she wanted to quit ministry, and her husband prayed over her while holding her hands. They never saw that side of him, she remarked. Instead of avoiding hardship, they embraced it with faith, which is why they are still together today. The Sar. Conversation carried a message for everyone experiencing quiet challenges, not just her followers. She advised, "Your private peace should not be defined by public opinion. It's acceptable to be misinterpreted. It's acceptable to keep your sacred areas safe. However, when you do talk, do it from a place of healing rather than hurt." She urged young couples to seek God in every season, visible or invisible, especially those in ministry. Marriage is a covenant, not a performance, and sometimes, rather than cameras, covenants need to be covered, she said. Her words were more than just sentimental. They were sage, composed, and brimming with the experience of someone who had endured years of peaceful upheavals. Sinach's marriage story was never intended for general consumption. However, she opted to remain silent not out of weakness but strength. When the clamor became too loud and the rumors attempted to drown her, she eventually spoke at the age of 53, sharing what grace had accomplished rather than proving anything. Sinach reminded us that certain stories are sacrosanct. In a society where everyone wants to share every detail, we learned from her path that truth never dies and that peace doesn't have to scream. One thing became evident as the conversation came to a conclusion and the world heard it. Sinach told her story even though she owed no one anything. By doing this, she inspired others to defend their own tranquility, because sometimes living your life is a more compelling testimony than shouting it. What it means to walk with God when no one understands is demonstrated by Sinach's life, music, and now her story. Perhaps that is the most important lesson of all, that we don't have to explain every detail of our lives to the outside world. Sometimes, the person who initially provided us with the journey is the only one who needs to comprehend. So, let's celebrate the power of silence, the splendor of limits, and having the guts to speak your mind when the world has already decided how you should live. I appreciate you, Sinach, for eschewing rumors in favor of grace, and I want to thank all the hearts that are listening for choosing to think that there is a human being behind every headline, with a story, a battle, and a Savior who continues to create the best endings.